Hello, my name is Mervyn Stutter, and every year since 1992 I have hosted my own showcase of fringe talents up at the Edinburgh Festival. It's a showcase of performances and interviews, but as there's no fringe this year I thought I'd continue with the interviews online. You can subscribe here for any updates and information. It's free to do so. Right, today I am talking to fringe veteran and master of the one-man play, Pip Utton. Hello, Pip.
Good morning, Mervyn.
How are you? Do you have a coffee? I have, yeah.
I've got a coffee, yes. Lovely coffee.
You've actually, Pip Utton, you've just got back from France. Are you in quarantine?
Yes. Yes, I'm in quarantine until Monday because I'm hoping to go back to France again.
Oh, right. Were you working in France or holidaying?
I was holidaying.
Oh, okay.
I was just soaking up the sun, soaking up the alcohol and the food and the atmosphere and sitting outside cafes, happily not understanding a word that anybody else said.
Well, you see,
all that stuff that really annoys me when I'm sitting in cafes in the UK, when I can hear people saying things I really object to. I can't object to it in France because I don't understand.
Yes. It's one way of cutting people out, and you could wear a mask, they don't know the hell you are. But you work across Europe, you see, so I just wondered whether there were some gigs that might be happening over there, but clearly they're like us, it's all closed down theatre, is it?
It is. I did my last gig anywhere on March the 9th. Everything else throughout the whole of Europe, throughout the whole of the UK has been cancelled. I've just been asked to go to Poland for the first week in October to do 2 shows, but that's the only thing that's on the books at the moment. And even that might depend on the new French coronavirus this afternoon.
And do you know how they're organising it in Poland, for example? That's their next show, hopefully. But when you go, are they doing distancing, masks? How do they run the theatre?
I have no idea. No idea. I don't think that their restrictions are as tight as ours.
Okay.
I know their entry restrictions aren't as tight. You can get into the country without quarantining. Even if you're getting into the country from France or from the UK or from Spain, you don't have to quarantine. So I just don't know really what to expect. But it's a small theatre that I've been to before in a city called Brooklyn. Wonderful people. I've been there 3 times before, and so I'm sure they'll have it.
You're quite fortunate because, as I said in the intro, you are the master of the one-person show, one man in your case, and like stand-up comedians or cabaret singers. I was talking to Christine Boval recently. She's got a piano player who can be socially distanced, of course, the length of a grand piano, and you can play any space at all. I mean, you're a fringe veteran, so you've played small rooms, you've played theatres, whatever, but you can actually play to a cabaret table style auditorium, can't you?
Yes, and have done many times.
Yeah.
And the size of stage isn't important.
No.
I can perform on a sixpence almost, and would do. And I would perform for a sixpence.
These days you probably have to, yes. Well, let's go back to the beginning, because you and I have known each other on and off for years. We meet at the Fringe mostly. We always say we're going to meet outside the Fringe, but we never do. You're too bloody busy, that's why. But we meet at the Fringe, and we probably first met 91, 92. I started this in 92, the Pick of the Fringe. Were you on the Fat One or 93?
I was there in 92, but I didn't meet you until 93.
And what was you doing in 92? Because I know you had an end of two kind of old style comics at the end of the Pier show. That was one of your early ones.
Yeah, that was in 93 as well. But in 92 I was doing a show about Edmund Kean called Flash of Lightning.
Ah, was that self-penned?
Sorry?
Was that written by you?
Yes. Yes, it was. And by William Shakespeare.
Him.
One of my favourite co-authors. But it did quite well. You know, I performed to an audience average of about 12, I think.
It's good.
Which I thought was wonderful.
For a first year?
Yeah, my first year, Greyfriars Kirkhouse, and I fell in love with the Fringe.
Well, interesting.
At the ripe old age of 40.
I actually didn't know that show. I just kind of remember, obviously, when I first met you, doing the two-hander. So you actually did a one-person show as your first foray into the fringe.
Yeah.
Was that a form you liked already, or did you just think this is easier than getting a company together?
Well, it is easier than getting, and it's cheaper than getting a company together.
Too true.
And also, I think sometimes you have to be honest about your ego. I'd far rather perform on my own and not share the limelight.
Fair enough.
I mean, I enjoy working with casts to a certain level, but I do enjoy performing.
Yeah.
I enjoy the audience looking at me, even when it goes wrong, because it's a challenge. And I hate that. I do have this superior belief if I'm in a cast that even if it's going badly, it'll all be right once I get on the stage.
Yes, you're going to save the show.
I can rescue this dire performance of The Tempest just by going on the stage. And I know that's sort of a big ego, but there you go.
No, but that's honest of you, and well, I've enjoyed also being on the stage on my own. It's a lovely thing. It is also about control. You run the events. If it's going such and such a way, you can shape it back. Or I mean, I know mine's slightly freer because I don't do plays, but although I know you do extemporize in your performances, which is called making stuff up on the spur.
Yeah, that's another word for it. That's the what do they say? That's the civilians' word for it.
Yes, exactly. So there you were. You did your keen and fell in love with the fringe. If you're getting 12 people as basically an unknown performer on the fringe, that's not bad. And then you moved into the two-hander. And I started to pick at the fringe and in the old cabaret bar. No, we were in the new cabaret bar by then. Because I started in the old one, which is now the cafe restaurant place in the Pleasance. So there you were, a two-hander. But then you went into, almost immediately, it came back. You came back with Hancock, didn't you?
Yeah. I did the two-hander and Hancock the same year. So I did 2 shows a day.
Because we're both a couple of old Hancock buffs. We really, stone me, what a life. It's all that, you know.
I think we're the only 2 left.
Yes. And so there's another one-man show, but you didn't write that one. But then you got into writing and performing, and also, did you call yourself your own company at this point, or 94?
94, I was my own company. We called ourselves, and it was 2 of us, myself and Jeremy.
Okay.
Jeremy Fowler, who co-wrote a few things with me and co-performed. And I think we called ourselves About Time Theatre.
Okay.
And it was because in the Fringe programme, it was all in alphabetical order.
Yes, A.
So if you called yourself with 3 A's at the beginning, you actually said, About Time Theatre. You actually got on the first page.
Yes, Malcolm Hardy used to bill himself as GH. Yes, Malcolm Hardy, whatever. Yeah, so he always got top billing. That depends whether you open it at the beginning or not. I always open the programme sort of halfway and go back and forth. But there we are. I scupper your plan.
I don't open it till the end of the festival.
Yes. Good, wise move. So Adolf. Let's jump to Adolf, because that was a piece that you wrote as an experimental piece of self-penned theatre, was it?
Yeah, it was an experimental piece. It only lasted 35 minutes.
Right.
It was at the laboratory in Southside when Lance had it, or Lance, who sadly died in a car accident the year that that Fringe happened. And it was wonderful because, I mean, it had a capacity of 25 people.
Yes.
And I sold out every day.
Yes, it's a wise move, isn't it, playing a small room? You get your name up in chalk. That's what we want, our names up in chalk.
Exactly. I was on the sold out board every day.
And people go, oh, what's this one? It sells out. It doesn't say sold out because there's only 25 seats. It just says sell out. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what happened to it? Because the reason for people who may not know, Adolf I think it's called the Breakthrough Show or something, isn't it? In showbiz terms, it's the show that where you suddenly elevated and became very well known for a staggering performance. I've seen it, but it was the show that then went to Europe, like because Fringe does that. Producers come and search out quality. It kind of exploded, but it was expanded first. So do you have to rewrite?
I extended it to an hour long, and then it went to an hour and 15. And then it was originally directed by a guy called Chris Parker. It was then very, very briefly taken over by Camellia in Brighton.
Right.
But then Guy Masterson.
Right.
We tell different stories, whether it was me that asked him or he that met me. And then I became part of the Guy Masterson Productions.
Yep.
He redirected it, produced it, and it did. It exploded. I mean, it went from everywhere, from Australia, New Zealand, to the States, to India, to the whole of Europe, and it has been. It's the equivalent to that first, the band's big hit.
It's like also it's important to say that you are actually performing as Hitler, Adolf Hitler, for most of the show. There's a section at the end, but for most of the show, you are on stage as Adolf Hitler, which is an extraordinary thing to do. No supporting cast, no committees or SS, or but it's just you.
Yeah. Yes.
Fantastic.
And it's frightening. I must be honest, because I mean, I was talking about an actor's ego, not an ego's actor. An actor's ego, and you do go on the stage mainly to be liked, if not loved. And there's no way you can stand on the stage as Adolf Hitler for 50 minutes and anybody like you.
Just interesting, picking up on we were just talking about the control and what you can do with an audience, because the performer has a certain amount of power, unless the audience get up and walk out, but you do have a certain amount of power to shape and respond. Did your level of power and control change because you were playing Hitler? Did you feel more control in some way?
I do feel in more control, and there are two moments in the show that can possibly get a laugh. Not that he's making a joke, but they can get a laugh. And I always know when I'm totally in control, when they both do, but nobody is happy about laughing. You can tell. And because he says frightful things. I mean, and it's also, talking about control, it's interesting because the play is about control and manipulation of an audience on a wider scale, of a whole nation.
Yeah.
And so it is, I feel the power of it, and I have to, so that the audience feel the power of it. But standing in front of that dirty, great big swastika, which I will be doing in Poland in the first week in October, is it has a feeling that the other shows don't have. I can only say that.
Yes, I'm sure it has. It has from as an audience perspective. So it's interesting to hear from the inside here. But you also play this show in Germany, don't you?
Yeah, I've done many trips to Germany. I've done it in the north of Germany. I've done it. I did it in Berlin for 3 weeks.
Wow!
At a very, very big theatre, 500-seater, twice a day for 3 weeks. And that was hairy.
Yes. You don't know who's going to turn up.
No. Well, we got some nasty people turn up. Nasty people? Yeah, we had threats, and we had. I had a bodyguard, and it was quite tense.
What about supporters of Adolf? Do they show at the performances?
I think the biggest supporter we've ever had was in Berlin, and it was, and I'm trying to remember his name now, but I can't. He was the last of Adolf Hitler's close bodyguard.
Wow.
To leave the bunker before Hitler committed suicide.
Wow.
And he stormed in and complained that an English actor was playing the part of Adolf Hitler, demanded a ticket, And at the end of the Adolf bit, he stood up in the audience, snapped to attention, and marched down.
Right. So did he still object, or did he? Do you
I
think?
have no idea. I mean, by then he was a bit of a TV personality, you can imagine, because he was the last contact with Adolf Hitler.
Blimey.
And I'm not saying he was a popular TV personality, but he was known. And I mean, the theatre, all of us, we were on edge all the way through.
I bet.
I mean, the police had planned an exit route for me. The technician had an emergency signal where he had to not dim, but black out all the lights. And so we were all throughout the whole show a bit jumpy.
Am I allowed to yes, because I also was thinking, what about the first time you went to Germany? That must have been a hairy one as well, because you had no experience to bring. By the time maybe Berlin happened, you'd done some other shows.
Yeah. Yes, and we've been through quite a lot. I mean, the first tour of Holland started at a theatre in Amsterdam, and 10 minutes in, evidently, the technician's box opened, and a police officer with a pistol and two policemen with machine guns stood behind my technician to watch the rest of the show, and then summoned us to a meeting about the show. There'd been a complaint to the Race Relations Board, and that again was hairy. I mean, I went, for example, I think it was enough to be Adolf Hitler, but then you go on the radio to do a 10-minute interview that turns into a 3-hour phone.
Well, I suppose
it's sold a lot of tickets, Mervyn.
Always remember the box office. No, because it's a very sensitive. What you've got, what do the people know? They're going to see a poster saying Adolf Hitler. So is this, and whatever else is on their reviews, stunning, da-di-da. But it's going to be, is this a celebration of the man? And so the show actually it changes gear at some point. I don't know whether we're allowed to discuss that, because that's the point of theatre. But it changes gear. And basically the reason why you're doing it becomes clear. But if you were just looking at the poster, post Second World War sensitivities amongst a lot of people still, in Holland, of course, and also Germany, who are trying to repair and move on, and all those things, and are very, very well aware of their history, and so they must panic a bit. I'm not surprised people were concerned. But
we did in Germany, when we did the big season, the 3 weeks, we did a question and answer thing after each performance.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting, because we did sell lots and lots of tickets, 500 people, and quite often the question and answer turned into the audience questioning and answering each other.
Yes.
And one thing frightening happened. A young girl who had just done a thesis on the play, before I got there, we'd been in communication with each other. She was in the question and answer, and she said that her sister was a lesbian. Didn't we agree that Hitler's attitude to homosexuality was correct? It is a disease that is curable. Now you can imagine the whole theatre just temperature dropped by I don't know how many degrees.
Wow.
And I just said, no, I shouldn't let anybody else in the audience agree with you at all. but I thought perhaps some do. That was the frightening one. The other thing that almost brought tears to my eyes was a man my own age who said, Mr. Utton, I just want to make a comment. He said, when you go home to the UK, you can ask your father what he did during World War II. He said, I've never been able to ask my father about what he did in World War II.
Wow. Yeah. So in those sort of sessions, I think it's rather splendid the audience get involved with each other. Otherwise, it becomes a question and answer with you. Now, I know you do an awful lot of research before these plays. Of course, with Adolf, you've got to be completely up to speed on so many things. So, are they going to question you and try and trip you up historically, or? No,
I've never done that. It was once pointed out to me by somebody that I was wearing the buttons on my Adolf Hitler uniform were actually from the Polish army.
Yes, and back at home in his bedroom, he has all these.
And I just thought, okay, fine then. I'll just get plain buttons in the future, then they can't be
Okay,
anymore.
but enough of Adolf, because I've got a list here. I've got a list here, so I'm going to read. You have a long catalogue of one-man shows now, after starting in 1993, 94 with Adolf. You have done Charlie Chaplin, Charles Dickens, Churchill, Casanova, Francis Bacon, Einstein, Hunchback of Notre Dame, and Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah.
Now, there's a selection. You do one a year almost, don't you? Or do you do one a year?
It turns out I do one a year, and some of them get forgotten because they're not very good.
Yeah.
So there's Roy Orbison doesn't get mentioned very often.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And the War of the Worlds doesn't get mentioned very often these days, because quite frankly, they shouldn't get mentioned very often these days. So I try to do one a year, but I think it turns out it's more two every 3 years, perhaps. And
so, well, as you say, you know, your hit rate can't always be 100%. That's fair enough, isn't it? So what, you know, you clearly got a bit of a repertoire that shows that are asked to perform quite regularly. What are your top ones? Churchill, I guess, is quite popular, is it?
It is. Churchill's quite popular all over the world. I mean, that's been to America and India, and yeah, just been everywhere. Almost as popular as Adolf. Margaret Thatcher was critically probably more acclaimed than any of the others, because it's a very different style of acting.
Yeah.
Churchill's been all around the world. I'm trying to think. The ones that are the most popular are the ones that actually do have some humour.
Humour in them, yes.
Yeah. So,
for example,
you know, a couple of years ago, I did a play about Alzheimer's, which was critically acclaimed and won awards and all that, but it has not sold that well.
No, but that's quite different for you, isn't it? Because I've read a list of where you are playing historical personalities.
Yeah.
You know, Francis Bacon, Einstein. Einstein was quite recent, but the Alzheimer's story was Before I Forget I Love You, I Love You.
Yeah, and Before I Forget I Love You, I Love You.
Yeah, and that's a personal story, of course.
Yes. Yeah.
So that was, in a sense, one you really wanted to write, but it wasn't a complete change of direction.
Yeah, the ones that are really personal to me are that one, The Hunchback, and there was one straight after Adolf called Resolution, which was about a man whose 18-year-old daughter gets run over and killed on her 18th birthday.
Blimey.
By a driver that's had too much to drink. So that wasn't a bundle of laughs either. And that did very well. And again, critically, we did wonderfully well. But at the box office, it did well at the Fringe, and it did well in Holland, but it's sort of just not sold.
Yes. Yes, if you're doing just the publicity, if you've got names like Chaplin and Dickens and Einstein, people are going to go, oh, you know, it's connection, they know. And so those shows are going to sell, aren't they?
Yeah, and that's what happens. I think because those names will sell, there's a handle for the audience to buy it.
Yeah.
And my name as a writer isn't a big enough handle for an audience to buy a ticket.
Yeah, but you've got a history now, of course. But while we're talking about the difference between the shows, you've got a very strong connection to Europe. The producers have come over to the Fringe, which is an important thing to say to audience people tuning in right now. That the Fringe is a place where you can perform and move your career on. If you have the right show, you can tour. In that sense, it becomes a little bit of a trade fair. There's guys walking around looking for stuff, and if you've got them what they fancy, off you go, you tour Europe, you can tour the UK, of course, Europe's, much, well, will it be easier after Brexit? We don't know. But Europe's very easy because it's nearby, and off you go. Before I forget, I love you, go to Europe as easily as, Chaplin, Dickens, and Einstein? That's, I suppose, the question, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've performed it in Poland and in Germany and in Holland. It did quite a good sized tour in Holland.
Do people trust you now, you see? That's where I'm going. Do those audiences trust you and go, well, he's doing something different, but we know Pip and he's good. We'll go and see what he's doing.
Yes, and I think in Holland that's very important. Because I've been going now for every year for the last 20 years.
Exactly, yeah.
There's an audience there that are a Pip Utton audience. I mean, I know that sounds conceited, but that's the way.
That's what the work. You put the work in, you get the audience. And of course, the Dutch are very good at they speak English better than we do. So,
Yes.
so you're home and dry on the language, aren't you? There, that's all good.
Yeah.
Now, having said all this and on all these things, it's important to say as well. Do you have no theatrical training whatsoever? Do you?
No.
So let's go back further than the fringe. What were you doing?
I was a jeweler.
Really?
Yeah, I used to, and I don't make jewellery. I'm not practical in any way at all. But I used to value and sell jewellery. I did my qualifications as a valuer and a gemologist. So I worked in retail. I worked as a supplier to the retail, and I did that for nearly 20 years, I suppose.
So when you came home from your jewellery trade, did you sit at night going, oh, I really would like to, or did you join an amateur company? I mean, did the performing become a hobby in some way, or?
Right, now this is where the true side of me really comes out, Mervyn, and
Wow.
I'll be very honest about it.
Oh, Lord.
I moved down to the West Country during this time, and decided that the best way to meet suitable females was to do amateur dramatics.
Yes.
And it was.
And so you married who you met there, did you? Yes.
No, but
This is before you got married, right?
before we got married, this was. Not before we got married. And it was the easiest way.
Right. I think we should draw a veil over the relationship side of this experience. So there you are. You're doing amateur. You're enjoying. You even flirted with the idea of drama school at 18. You were saying, I think. But a steady job called.
I just thought the performing in front of an audience was exciting, and there was a competition here at the local theatre down in Frome, Mervyn Festival. They did a one-act play competition, and so I wrote or made up the Edmund Kean play, just to experiment to see and it was only a 30-minute thing at the time, and I was just knocked out by it, doing it. I just loved doing it.
Yeah.
It was, and the only way to do it more, because I couldn't sell it to kids that didn't know what I did, was to go to Edinburgh and to get the opportunity to do something 26 times.
Yes. When you learn a lot.
To do a proper run of something.
Yeah.
And then when I saw the potential of being in Edinburgh, I can remember, I wasn't annoyed. I was really excited when I got refused entry at the Star Bar at the Assembly Rooms.
Right.
Because nobody knew me.
Yeah.
Nobody knew my play. Nobody knew anything about me. And I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful to be part of this world and somebody know your name?
You started dreaming big. Yeah. The lovely thing about the experiment you did with Kean, 30 minutes, local community theatre, theatre space, whatever, you can go for it and fail without failing it almost.
Yeah.
It's pretty secure, and then you come out going, hang on, I can do this.
No, I want to do this.
Okay.
I've never I'm still waiting to wake up and think I can do this.
Well, yeah. Every performer thinks I'll be found out soon, because it is a pleasure to do it. It's a pleasure if it's working. It's not so great a pleasure if you fail. But no, you're doing great. Talking local theatres, aren't you associated with the Merlin Theatre, I think?
Yeah.
What is that? Tell us a little bit about that.
Merlin Theatre is a little local theatre, seats 246, I think. And I generally perform now all of my plays. They do their premiere at the Merlin.
Good idea.
And they give me technical support and rehearsal support, and Claudia, the director there, gives me lots and lots of support. And I think when they had an associate artist, I became an associate theatre artist.
And what do you do? What do you do for that title?
Sorry? What do I think about that title?
What are your jobs? What are your duties as associate artist?
Nothing at all.
Fantastic. Can I be one?
You perform in the theatre and you don't charge them a fee.
Yes. And they give you a title. It's like the House of Lords, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, let's not go down there.
No, okay. The other thing to mention, of course, is that you fell in love with the Fringe, you said in '92, but not only do you perform regularly, but you are also now, what was it, director of the Fringe Festival Society, and on the board, and you have an administrative role in the Fringe now.
Not at the moment. I came off the board 2 years ago.
All right.
And I'm just standing to hopefully be re-elected again.
Yes.
To the board of directors of the Fringe Society.
And how do you find that end of it, being involved at the organisational end?
It's quite exciting, being at the heart of it, and it has been very exciting because occasionally it doesn't all run smoothly.
Not this year.
Not this year, no. And I think this year is a big opportunity for the society to look at itself and actually decide what its purpose is again.
Yes.
But I think all organisations have to do that now and again. All performers have to do that now and again. Are we doing the right things? Are we attracting an audience still? And how can we attract more? And I think the society has to do that again. I mustn't make this my my political broadcast.
No.
But it does need to address certain issues that it's not addressed before.
I don't think there's any harm in talking about it, because I was going to ask you, and you can choose, but obviously this year was a financial disaster for virtually everybody involved. Artists had plans, they were in rehearsal, they paid writers, God knows what expenses already been set up, accommodation, various things. And the Fringe itself was now having no income. And they got a bailout of what, 1.5 million, was it? No, I can't remember. Something around there.
Yeah, 1 point something.
Yeah, and I'm going, oh, that's good. And then I go, what's that to be spent on? So I don't know. Where is that going?
That's a very, very good question. And I think it needs asking. And I think the society needs to look at where it does get spent. We also have to realise that there's every possibility that next year's Fringe, if it happens, will happen without the vast array of international performances.
Exactly so. Yes.
I mean, especially the smaller ones, they cannot afford to come over and quarantine for 2 weeks beforehand and go home and quarantine for 2 weeks again. Neither can producers, neither can tour bookers. It's going to be a very different Fringe, and £1.2 million needs, I think, to be spent in part on making sure the Fringe happens for the people who are the bedrock of the Fringe.
Yes, it's true that the Fringe wouldn't happen unless people like you in '92 with Keane and myself push our personal money or borrowed money, whatever it might be, and say, I will back doing a show and hope I break even and don't make a loss. So if the Fringe only exists because people are pushing their overdrafts at their product and hoping it's all right, and therefore there's this magnificent festival, and underneath there's this tremendous financial uncertainty with all the performers, most of the performers, and so you do think, well, okay, if there's a bailout, what's that got to do with the actual performers? And then you've got the audience as well. Will they want to come and sit in tight rows and etc.?
Exactly.
And so you've got
Yep.
whole venues, like an individual theatre can change its format. It could rip out its seats if it wanted to and put in cabaret tables for the foreseeable. But will the university do that, or will the theatre spaces of Edinburgh that are used at the Fringe do that? It's a massive amount of change necessary to keep people watching performers who are still punting their overdrafts against their talent.
I mean, the thing is that the performers have not had the exposure of the Fringe this year. It's difficult to argue that the performers have not had the income, because most performers don't get any income from the Fringe. I mean, I and you, we both do, because we've been at it so long.
34 years.
Yeah, but the venues had no income.
I know.
The producers and the production companies had no income from the Fringe this year. So they are going to need some big support from the Fringe Society for the next 2 or 3 years, I would have thought. And I think that it can't. I have to say this: it can't continue just turning into a glitzy commercial festival that gets bigger and bigger and more commercial each year. It has to remain commercial because that attracts the audience. But there is a spirit of the Fringe, and there is an expectation of the Fringe, the Edinburgh Fringe, to lead the way worldwide in this. There's an opportunity to show great leadership.
Yeah,
I think, in the Fringe Society.
When I talk to other performers like yourself, we always sort of wind up talking about going back to basics. That if a theatre space has got rows, then you've got to find an open space somewhere in a community hall or something where you can put the cabaret tables. Actually works for the COVID disaster. You can have your 6 now. You can have your group of 6s in tables and play to them. So theatre has to adapt to a more open, less formal, less proscenium arch kind of approach. We've got to go back to I remember in the 60s when I was kicking around at this stuff. We were deconstructing theatre spaces. You can see the scaffolding and all that, and opening up theatre spaces. And I think we've got to go back to that. Even putting a rug down in the marketplace. This will actually change how the Fringe operates, I'm sure.
Well, I think it must, and it's going to change the way theatre operates. And in theatre, in the wider sense, comedy, musical, all forms of the performing arts are going to have to change.
Does online work for you? I think singers can work online successfully. Comedians less so, because a joke does need a bit of live feedback. You need to be close to the people. But can your theatre work online? It's another option, isn't it?
It is an option, and I experimented right at the beginning of lockdown. I put And Before I Forget I Love You up on YouTube in 5 episodes. And the first one got, I don't know, nearly 1,000 views, and the second episode got 700, and then the 5th episode got 200. And I counted that as success, but the fact is, it didn't earn me a penny.
No. Exactly.
We can all alter the way we perform and go online, but in the long run, if this is the way we make our living, it has to help us make our living.
Yes.
And I don't know about you, but and this crisis, I haven't earned a penny, and no government help. I don't qualify for any of the government schemes at all. So, and likewise, I don't qualify for any government assistance because I've actually got a few quid saved up.
Right, yes.
So, this is how I earn a living, and somehow I have to work out how I can continue to earn a living from it. Because if I can't, then I can't continue.
No.
Oh, that's a depressing note to finish on, isn't it?
In some ways, it's quite exciting because we all need to look at what we do and how we do it. And I suppose I'm lucky. I'm 68. I'm not exactly at the beginning of my career, and so I can go and work in Poland for a small amount of money. I can work doing rural tourings and reduce my my costs, because while it is my living isn't as expensive as it used to be.
I think everyone, even back to the festival conversation, people are performing for less money. Venues can't charge as much. Tickets are going to be cheaper. The whole financial thing is going to be compressed. And yes, it won't be. It'll be hand to mouth for some people to keep going. Comedy clubs as well. You know, the gigging comedian. Well, I don't know what help those clubs are getting from the government. But that's a nightmare too, I think, for those guys. But we'll see. I am pensionable, so I do get a piece of money from the state.
Well, so when I said I don't get any state help, I do get my old age pension.
Yeah, and a bit of me is so grateful for being older. But there we are.
I think it's wonderful that they realise that I need £8,500 a year.
Is that as much? How do you get that? Anyway.
And they're willing to furlough people at £2,500 a month because they need that.
Yes. No, well, there we are. No. Inconsistencies in government policy, surely not. Look, we must... Don't let's go there.
It'd be nice if they had a bloody policy to still...
Well, Operation Moonshot, there we are. We can all shoot for the moon, I think, these days, can't we? Yes. None of it.
He's writing his scripts.
I'm announcing a new operation. It's called Operation Millionaire. It's for me. It won't happen, but it's a lovely idea.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I'm going to start a charity. It's going to be called Stuff. Save the Utton.
Pip, pleasure as always talking to you. Thanks for your time. Take care, mate. Bye for now.
Yeah.
That was writer and actor Pip Utton. For all information and updates, why not subscribe to the channel right here? It's free to do so. Right, there'll be more interviews coming up soon, so see you then. Bye.